Good evening. Today is the 31st day of October 2015, and we are continuing with our explorations in Savitri, Book 1, Canto 5. As always, we have Alok with us and are grateful for that. The mother wrote in her own hand regarding Meditations on Savitri, Volume 1, 1964, the following. Savitri, this prophetic vision of the world's history, including the announcement of the Earth's future. I was blessed to have Mother ask me to photograph all of Huda's paintings. And in her letter, a beautiful letter she wrote to me, she asked me if I could possibly spare an hour a day or one day a week. And she says, because I know you will make a success of it. And she writes in her own hand, you see, Mahalakshmi is the Divine Mother's aspect of love, the perfection of manifested love, which must come before this supreme love, which is beyond the manifestation and the non-manifestation can be expressed. The supreme love referred to in Savitri, when the Supreme sends Savitri to the earth. Forever love, O beautiful slave of God. Mother wrote it in her own hand. Next week we'll hear some more.
So, very beautiful, very interesting.
Yes.
Mahalakshmi's love and prepares for the supreme love.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Which is beyond the manifestation and the non-manifestation. So we begin with after the break tonight, on page 83.
And what we are seeing is the consequences of the descent. Ashwapati has experienced the great descent, described so powerfully and beautifully. And this is the course that takes place in this yoga. We see that Ashwapati has already gained liberation from ignorance, which is what most yogis talk about as self-realization. But it seems that self-realization doesn't automatically give us the inner knowledge of this world and all the forces that are operative in it. So that's why we have a spiritual side of yoga and an occult side of yoga. So there are some who go into the occult. They learn about the forces that govern this nature or stand behind the appearances of nature, or we may put it, weave the appearances of nature. And very often they are lost in it because it's a wonderful and dangerous territory. It's a vast territory. It's to know the cosmos, cosmic consciousness, where every moment everything is changing and changing in a way that defies our reason and logic. There is another way where the spiritual seeker completely runs over them, cuts through this passage, doesn't bother about it, and goes straight to realize the self. In which case, he doesn't understand the occult technology or the structure of the universe. And he is content with that because he has nothing to do with this creation. He is done with birth and life and death. But here we see, because of the descent, Ashwapati is experiencing something which is very interesting. He is now experiencing not just the cosmic consciousness, but the entire occult mechanism, structure, the forces, the beings, the Godhead, who is behind this apparent facade of creation. So this is a knowledge which is important in this yoga, because in a yoga of purely self-realization, we need not know. We need to know only that much of occult which is necessary for maybe just finding the self. And mostly it's not even a knowledge, but simply some rules of do's and don'ts. Do this, don't do this, this is safe, this is not safe, that's the end of the story. But a world transforming yoga embraces the world, and one has to know the way the occult forces work and are at play in this creation. And this knowledge now suddenly appears before Ashupati. So this is a very
And we go back to the first line.
Yes, yes.
This knowledge first he had of time-born men.
Yes. So this, in a certain sense, we can also say that there is a self-knowledge and there is an integral self-knowledge. This is the extension of that self in creation and how it goes into the most detailed processes of everything. So as a result of the great descent, now this is also important because in our yoga we don't practice occultism or try to understand occult the way occultists do. In our yoga, it's a consequence of the descent of grace, of the Shakti, of love, that it uncovers, the bandage of the ego or the seal of the ego. The more it melts, then we are able to see what is beyond the weaving of the senses and the ego self.
But given to some, not all.
Yes, given to some, and also because it has its own hazards, it has its own dangers. If a certain kind of work is required in that field, that much occult knowledge comes. I remember someone who was doing this. Mother has used the term growing consciousness. Now, someone who was given the task of segregating letters which were coming for different people, Chandradeep. You may have known him. He is well known in the Hindi zone. And what he would do is, when the letters would come, he would not look at them. He would simply, segregate like this. He knew which letter is for whom without reading it. So because he was doing this work, this power was given to him. Then there are others. Mother said, if you pick up something, you should pick up exactly. So the other day I found it very interesting in the bank. One lady who was, unconscious occultism exists in many people. So she took out a bundle of notes. She had to give me a certain denomination and she missed it just by one note. And I said, remarkable. So she didn't understand why I'm so appreciative of that. I said, no, it's very good that your hands can almost exactly pick up the right number. So there is a kind of unconscious occultism which all of us practice. And for those who are given a certain work, that much of knowledge is given to us. But Sri Aurobindo's work is as vast as the creation. So the knowledge also of the occult realms which is given to him is not just bits and parts, but the entire knowledge. So we have this, all was uncovered to his sealless eye. Look, one line, there is nothing like, bits and parts, all was uncovered. Nothing is left. Is secret nature stripped of her defense? It's interesting. What is her defense? We read earlier the magic fence of nature. It's a defense. She doesn't allow us to pierce beyond it. Doubts, denials. Sometimes human beings are lost in endless rational arguments. Can it be? Can it not be? Or they are all the time rationally analyzing things. But they've never really stepped into the vastness of nature, which hides behind appearances. Or they are simply digging a little bit on the surface, scratching the plaster of the wall and saying, this is what it is. So here, to his eye, this nature is stripped of her defense.
And Mother speaks of nature, and finally nature agrees to collaborate.
Yes, collaborate. That is 1958.
Never before.
Yes. And that's why many such practices, during that time, you reminded me of a story of a real event that people would count the number of flowers in the mother's room. Yes. And if they were not doing their job well, mother herself would count. They thought that it's nothing important. She would herself count. Sometimes this was an important event. It would go on till 12, 1 o'clock at night. At night, imagine mother with Vasudha Ben is counting the flowers, counting the things which have come from nature, and then she would say, it is my pact with nature and I want to see whether she is really collaborating or not. So it's another kind of science which we see at least in a summary way being dealt here. In details, it will come in the next book. Once in a dreaded half light, formidable, overtaken in her mighty privacy, lay bare to the burning splendor of his will. Nature is a living being, conscious being. She may feign unconsciousness as in matter. So once she looked formidable in a half light. God knows how these processes work. Formidable. But suddenly she is overtaken by Ashwapati in a moment when she is bare without any covering
In her mighty
in
privacy.
a mighty privacy. Suddenly, he enters and, takes charge of her. And you see in Sri Aurobindo's life, this formidable powers, how they become subdued. There's so many examples, but two of them which come to my mind is one when such storm was coming, thunder storms in Pondicherry, cyclone, and the mother goes to close the windows and she sees Sri Aurobindo is writing on the desk. The windows are open and not a drop of water is entering.
In his room.
Yes. Similar story took place in Golkond, and another one where Kiki the cat was stung by a scorpion and she's dying, just dead.
Mother puts her on the table in front of Sri Aurobindo.
Yes, and says, Lord, you have to do something. Imagine, this is the play she herself could do, but look at the beauty of the play. These stories are very charming.
Kiki cannot die.
Yes. And Sri Aurobindo doesn't say anything, just looks at her. And after a while, she gets up, stretches her feet and neck and jumps and goes away. So, lay bare to the burning splendor of his will. Ashwapati's will has grown like a fire which can pierce across any kind of darkness, any veil. And in our case, this will is not just distorted, perverted, and it is scattered into many, many desires. We put our will into small things, petty things. And as a result, this will can never become powerful enough to really pierce past the screen. In shadowy chambers, lit by a strange sun, and opening hardly to hid mystic keys, her perilous arcanes and hooded powers confessed the advent of a mastering mind and bore the compulsion of a time-born gaze. What an image it is. We see movies where this, people who go into occult and they are in hunt of or search of occult powers. But look, in few lines, Sri Aurobindo brings that image in a much more powerful way. Perilous. You can't touch them. Mother speaks so casually about this great snake which she saw who is guarding the wealth at the door of the Asuras. We can't think of a small little snake and, without being frightened. And here she is looking at this snake and having a conversation. So you have to be so fearless. And the mother used to say, you have to be totally fearless to enter the realm of the occult. So here we see these lines. What is that thing in Ashwapati? Mastering mind. The mind can be weak. It can be constantly driven by desires and impulses. It becomes weak. Or the mind it starts by mastering the body, the vital, even thought. And eventually it becomes so powerful that even the occult powers it can master. By a single will, it can begin to move events and circumstances. Incalculable in their wizard modes, immediate and invincible in the act. Her secret strengths, native to greater worlds, lifted above our needy, limited scope. This is the problem. These powers are there waiting, but we don't need them. Our limited scope. We want food, we want sleep, we want a roof over our head, a partner in life, children, grandchildren. So they are not. They are powers which can change the very law of circumstances. And that's why we are slaves at the mercy of things. Imagine how Sri Aurobindo and the mother worked on the money force. there was a long time when it would refuse all kinds of effort to come to the ashram for her work. It would just refuse. But look now what happened. There is no limit to it. It pours. Mother's work always invariably. And I have seen it, and many persons have seen it. If it's her work, you take it. Don't worry about it. It will come. Have the faith. Do it with sincerity and it will come. How it will come, from where it will come, we don't know.
That beautiful story of Ganesh.
Ganesh.
When mother is meditating and with some people and she's wondering, is this really true that this fellow has an elephant trunk, etc.? And he comes before mother. He says, of course I'm real.
I'm real.
And then he says, I will give you whatever you want, like for the and he said, as long as it's money.
Yes.
And for the next 10 years, mother said it just flowed.
Yes. So there are these powers which have their own capacities. They can change our world in many ways. But we are so much bogged down by our so-called everyday life that we don't even care to look deeper and look further. The occult privilege of demigods. But they have this. You just mentioned one. So, the demigods, privilege of the demigods. Another story of Prithvi Singh Nahar, that when he had a heart attack, he just lay down. Prithvi Singh Nahar, amazing. His eyes were, the doctors had said he is suffering from a disease. By 35, he would lose his eyes.
Yes.
And imagine what work was given to him to type out Sri Aurobindo's script.
Life divine.
Life divine.
Life divine.
And mother told him that don't worry, your destiny will change. And even at the age of 70, he was the authority to exactly read out what Sri Aurobindo has written. And Taradi would tell me that, how he would read if you give him the text, because, there was a pressure on the eyes because of the original congenital disease. But there was another aspect of grace. So he would bring it close to his eyes, move his head in this way and read it. For Sri Aurobindo's handwriting, he had the power to read it correctly and accurately. This was, so there are many such things which are hidden in the occult realm. And when he had a heart attack, he prayed to mother and suddenly he saw two tall, handsome beings, twins, who came with a bag over their neck, over their shoulders. And immediately Prithvi Singh Nahar became cautious. He said, look, don't come near me unless you belong to mother. And they smiled, looked at each other and smiled. And suddenly he experienced that they entered into his heart. And he felt that they are squeezing the heart with some herbs. This was another dimension of experience, obviously. And then they came out and vanished and everything was gone. And so he asked the mother that, what happened? Did you send the Ashwins? She said, yes, because you prayed. I asked the physician of the gods to go and attend to you. See, imagine that's a privilege of the gods. It's not the mortals for whom the physician of the gods come. They are royalties. They come when Indra is injured and Agni is injured or diminished in this world because of men's desires. Then Ashwins will come swift-footed. The Vedic rishis speak about them. Or Ribhus, the artisans of immortality. But we have lost contact with these powers and these godheads. They become less real and the doctor with the stethoscope has become more real. But to
complete Prithvi Singh, he told me once that it was the first time he went before Sri Aurobindo and mother. And he said, I was first and my sisters, 4 sisters last.
Yes.
And he said, Sri Aurobindo touched my head and then mother touched my head, and they did it for all my sisters also.
Yes. Very dedicated family. Amazing.
Yes.
And I must complete it. He looked amazingly handsome. I mean, I have seen first time when I saw his photograph. I mean, I was stunned by the beauty and handsomeness of a face. So I asked Suprabhadi that, is it him? She said, yes. I said, he looked so handsome. I mean, I'm not normally accustomed to picking up a handsome face, but I have seen so many. Naturally, you see so many faces here, but this is amazing. So, now all these powers, the occult privilege of demigods, and the sure power pattern of her cryptic signs, her diagrams of geometric force. The entire tantric knowledge comes to him as a gift of grace. The divine Shakti liberates, opens all these centers and all the geometric patterns, the mandalas, the yantras, which tantrics speak about. Her potencies of marvel fraught design, quoted employment by an earth nursed might. Look at the line.
There it is.
Quoted employment. And Amal Kiran writes that in one of his poems, that he sees the muse sisters come to Shurbindo, and while Shurbindo is writing, they are standing with folded hands. Please take me, make us also your instruments. And the mother, this story where she passingly mentions, and look at mother's humility. When she speaks about great musicians coming to use her hands,
Yes.
actually it was a occult privilege given to them. Because they had achieved this degree of perfection, she drew them that, okay, I am giving you a touch of my hands. Imagine the incarnate divine's touch. But she doesn't speak of that. She just says, using her hands. And if somebody understands it in a different way, one would say, okay, it was they who were playing using her hands. It's not at all in this sense. She allowed these powers, these beings, these energies to come and, play through the hands. Quoted employment. Please use us. A conscious nature's quick machinery, armed with the latent splendor of miracle, the prophet passion of a seeing mind, and the lightning bareness of a free soul force. So, this machinery of nature, and this is a big difference between the scientific view of nature and the yogic view of nature. In scientific view, nature is mechanical, inconscient, jada, and all the forces are all unconscious. Despite now increasing evidence that possibly even the electron makes choices. Now, that's a whole domain of physics where it has entered into the occult. Yet it's very hard for a scientist to believe that, well, it's conscious. But there is a conscious nature standing behind the unconscious appearance of nature. And all its machinery has gone into his charge. And what is it? The prophet passion of a seeing mind and the lightning bareness of a free soul force, so that he can use it as his will, at his will. Shubinda has written a very interesting note in his essays on siddhis. And he says that many yogis try to run away from siddhis as an obstacle. But it's perfectly possible to have these siddhis and use them as a master and a sovereign. And he had used these siddhis. He had all of them and he could use it. I mean, right from levitation to many things, which maybe in due course of time we'll speak about. All once impossible, deemed could now become a natural limb of possibility. There is nothing which is impossible. A new domain of normalcy supreme. So what we call as normal is nothing but nature's magic fence. Yes. It ties us to that outpost by beliefs and disbeliefs and doubts. It's not possible. No, this cannot be. But if we read through many of Mother's letters, she never regarded anything as impossible. She said there are conditions and it is possible to work on them, but it's a process. So at one point, Sri Aurobindo writes in one of the letters that because this disease in you has a genetic and hereditary loading, therefore it will resist a lot. It will take a long time, but even that can be cured. But there are conditions. Now, very often, conditions are not easy because you have to undo millenniums of habit. And that's what she was doing in the yoga of the cells. So,
And this now, Sri Aurobindo takes us into a different realm for a moment,
yes, yes,
beginning with this seeming outward world.
yes, yes,
So he stops with Ashwapati
yes.
and he gives us
An
a
almighty,
view.
yes, an almighty occultist erects in space. Occultist. Why not read?
Yes.
These are very beautiful lines.
An almighty occultist erects in space this seeming outward world which tricks the sense.
This is how the Upanishads speak about how the world has come out. This world is real and unreal at the same time. It's a play of the senses and the mind which creates all these solid forms, objects. It's a mystery that atoms and molecules, which are seemingly charges, and yet they come together with 99.99% of empty space and creates objects which are so solid. It's mind-boggling.
It is.
And yet, Almighty, you can't, by thought, you can't just pierce it. You may know it mentally, intellectually comprehend it, but it's not enough.
But the divine is the almighty
Yeah,
occultist.
yes. Erects in space.
He weaves his hidden threads of consciousness. He builds bodies for his shapeless energy. Out of the unformed and vacant vast, he has made his sorcery of solid images.
So it looks to us, and now, of course, modern science would very much understand these these words and what Sri Aurobindo is implying. This world of solid images, which appears to us so much real, but at the bottom of it, it's not. That's why, recently in the realm of healing, there's a talk about quantum leap of healing. And they say that unfortunately we have not been able to integrate the discoveries of modern physics and quantum mechanics into the field of health and healing. It's like we have an energy field which operates at a quantum level, and there is a way that we can impose this field which inherently contains the original blueprint upon the physical matter and change it. And it seems, this is one of the theories. Naturally, it's an intellectual speculation, but a rational speculation, not done by an occultist, obviously, that possibly every moment we are swinging from being this what we know, as well as perhaps not even swinging. The person has used the word swinging, but I would say we are simultaneously coexisting in a particle form and a wave form, depending on the angle of vision. And it's possible for us to impose upon this particle form that other one which contains the original blueprint. So you see, there are so many possibilities. His magic of formative number in design. It's unimaginable, this formative number in design. For instance, at least in India, this thing about 108. It's very interesting. The distance from Earth to Moon, and the distance from Moon to the Sun, and there are many such distances. If you see, they come into multiples of 108. So how we see the same pattern repeating itself again and again, or multiples of 7. Once Sri Aurobindo said that there would be 12 planets, and surely I'm sure at some point there would be discoveries they are discovering, because these things come in certain patterns. Even our life runs in certain patterns of number of years. So there is a pattern, and how it, otherwise mathematics would be meaningless. If there is, if all is chance, then it's very hard to explain mathematics. And it's there are patterns, there are mathematical.
Fibonacci numbers.
Yes.
In flowers.
Yes, in flowers. Absolutely. His magic of formative number and design, the fixed irrational links, none can annul. They look irrational to our normal logic. As Sri Aurobindo says, the logic of the finite mind. But They are rational in terms of the logic of the infinite. But they look irrational. Thorns with the rose, weeds with the wheat, the paddy growing in the field. It is surrounded by weeds. And the beauty is these weeds prevent it from being eaten away by birds. This is a different kind of logic. The rose protected by thorns. It's amazing. So many such things we see in nature that we wonder that really is it unconscious? It's the crisscross tangle of invisible laws, his infallible rules, his covered processes achieve unerringly an inexplicable creation where our error carves dead frames of knowledge for a living ignorance. We observe a little and we make a whole theory out of it, create a system out of it, very often without the real experience, and so it becomes a dead frame of knowledge.
For a living ignorance. Humor.
So, yes.
Oh, his humor.
Yes. So, but that's how the intellectual mind proceeds.
Yeah.
And now what follows is amazing.
Yes,
See, look at the
she.
play. She. Basically, this whole wide world is only he and she. You know, this thing about the Tantra, the masculine and the feminine principle, it's amazing, you know. If you read the Tantra Sar, you will see that they write, how did Krishna, it's all a play of the masculine and the feminine, which in the Shaiva Tantra will be Shiva and Parvati. The name is not really so important. So, Shiva is playing with Kali in his lap. And Kali says, okay, now I'll become Krishna. That's how, according to Tantra, it is Kali who became Krishna. And it's interestingly, Sri Aurobindo speaks about Krishna and Kali as the dual energy. So Shiva says, all right, I'll become Radha. He changes. So it's not about the gender. You know, somebody asked the mother, there must be, people had all kinds of stupid questions. That Divine Mother, does she have a gender? Imagine, it's a principle. It is not a gender. It has nothing to do with, she said, even the gods, they don't have a body which differentiates into gender. It can easily change from one into another. But it's a principle in nature. And both coexist, and yet one can be put in front and the other kept behind. So this is how the he and she, they are one, but have become two for the sake of the play. And they are playing, and our lives are caught in between. But we can become part of their play consciously. That is what is given to us. If we don't, we suffer because it looks like a cruel joke. She too, as sovereignly creates her field. In her mysteries, moods, divorced from the Maker's laws. So the eternal feminine principle says, all right, let me do my own way. But she hides him inside. So she also creates her fields.
And now we read the other day of the Catholic priest.
Yes.
Who saw
the Divine Mother.
The Divine Mother.
In his near-death experience.
Yeah, near-death experience.
This is an ideal case of dead frames of knowledge for a living ignorance.
Yeah.
Because he broke beyond the frame. Yeah. And it's very difficult for him to explain. Yeah. Because he broke beyond the frame and saw something so living and real. Yeah. But if he goes into the frame, then the frame doesn't allow. No, dead frame of knowledge.
Exactly.
In her mysteries, moods, divorced from the Maker's laws, she too as sovereignly creates her field. He makes the laws and she overpasses them. This is the game. She says, all right, you make the rules of the game and I'll change the rules of the game. If you look at it like a play, it's an amazing play. So he has to make new rules. She overpasses those rules. So this is the constant play which is going on. her will shaping the undetermined vasts, making a finite of infinity. That's why she is called Maya. She creates finite, seemingly finite, out of
Out
infinity.
of infinity.
She too can make an order of her caprice, as if her rash, superb wager to outvie the veiled Creator's cosmic secrecies. She would make the vast Godhead into a small baby. It's difficult to understand how the divine can become. That's why even Sachidanand has to manifest through her. She alone can do it. This is no less a miracle that God becomes human than human becoming God. This is a very interesting bhajan written by, of course, a mystic poet. And he says that I am filled with wonder. Dekh sakhi mohe acharaj aave. I am filled with wonder. Why? What is the wonder which has filled your eyes? He says, Jaake bhay dolat nab dharni, kal karal jas ko bhay khave. By whose fear the sun and stars move in the space, by whose fears they are rooted at their places, firm positions. And I see him become a little baby holding a mother's finger and she is teaching him to walk. This is a wonder of wonders. So Nandlal आज जननी के बाह pakadi chali wo sikhave. She is teaching him to walk. And I can see that no, he is not an ordinary mortal. He is the Supreme who has taken this shape. Who could do it? But Maya. Making the infinite into seeming finite. And it makes the play interesting because now this finite has to recover its infinity. For that again she will enter into the play. As Mahamaya, she will break the bonds. So this is the play. Of course, if you know it's a play, it's very wonderful.
We come now to 4 lines.
Yes, please read them. They are really amazing.
I don't know. This is the highest of the
Highest
high.
of the height, yes.
The rapid footsteps of her fantasy, amid whose falls wonders like flowers rise, are surer than reason, defter than device, and swifter than imagination's wings.
Amid whose falls wonders like flowers arise. Can we imagine how she creates?
These footsteps
Yes.
of her fantasy.
Casually she is walking and we cannot even imagine to conjure and capture it. We have an image now. But even then, and how she fills it. Fills this vegetal kingdom with such wonderful. All she new fashions by the thought and word. Compels all substance by her wand of mind. So this is the magic stick. We see sorcerers using a magic wand. So we all have a magic wand. Only we are doing it on ourselves all the time. This magic wand can change everything, but we are, nature gave us the magic wand and turned our hand onto our side. So we keep on using the magic wand to keep us fixed into our fixed position of being helpless, powerless, useless, etc., etc.
And now,
Yes, this magic wand of mind, what it can do? Mind is a mediator divinity. Its powers can undo all nature's work. That's why she speaks about the physical mind, the material mind, the cellular mind. It is the mind that, like a clockwork, has fixed everything into a pattern of habit. If you change it, it can actually undo. It has this power. It is the mind that has gone into the cells that they will behave in this way and no other. And if you work upon it, that's why the mother was so keen on. At one stage, Sri Aurobindo says, no, it cannot be changed. Some other way has to be found. It is useless. And the mother says later on in the agenda that Now she has found the way to change it.
Yes.
Because unless you change it, because the other way is that you discard all these habits of nature, etc., and let a new being arise. But then man will not be able to cross the chasm. It will be too big a gap. So she goes into the mind of the cells, into the most material mind, and works upon it. This is the wand through which it has fixed all things. Mind can suspend or change Earth's concrete law. I mean, I'm sure people have witnessed, I have witnessed, in a state of hypnosis, somebody literally floating in air. I have actually seen it.
You've
And
seen it.
seen it with all these go right in front of, I mean, 5 feet in front of me. So I can't imagine that, it's unreal. And then I asked the boy that, look, what was your experience? You were floating. He said, no, I don't know what happened to me. It's like in a different state altogether. He couldn't recall anything that happened. But to the audience, it was something fantastic.
You remember Dmitri von Mohrenschildt?
Yes.
He told me that he had come here as a friend of Eleanor Montgomery.
Right.
And everything he saw in the ashram, he hated. The marching, the groups, the different divisions of this handmade paper and Harpagon and all. He said, I'm leaving.
Yes.
And Ellen says, well, at least go to see Mother. She's playing tennis today. Well, you have to see her at least. So he goes to the tennis ground. Mother's playing tennis. Suddenly she stops and she looks at him. He's not told anybody this but me. He said, I levitated 3 feet in the air, and he said I was hers from then on.
It's all our ideas that this can be, this cannot be. For a long time, Mother fought against this idea, these beliefs, and she continues to do that. Affranchised from earth habits' drowsy seal, liberated, released,
Yes.
affranchised. It has lent its energy to matter, and once it is released, the leaden grip of matter it can break. Indifferent to the angry stare of death, it can immortalize a moment's work, a simple fiat of its thinking force. The casual pressure of its slight ascent can liberate the energy dumb and pent within its chambers of mysterious trance. Simple fiat of its thinking force. At one place, Sri Aurobindo says in one of his letters, of course, cancer can be cured, even by a suggestion. Now, I know at least 4 persons. One very recent who came with stage 4 of cancer spread all over the body, confirmed by Tata Institute. So it's not like just told by some village doctor. Very often people say these reports are not real. Who came to me one day and said, anyways, they have told me that maybe 2 months you will have to live, but I want to completely surrender myself to Mother. And whatever she wants. I said, yes, but do you want to live or you want to die? He said, yeah, I want to live. I don't think any problem about myself. So I said, then you have this whole bundle of papers which you have got with you. Keep it at her feet. And if you want to take, it's a leap of faith. But I told him the practical aspects, which I had to tell him that, you are confiding to me, but tomorrow if there is an issue, you can't be admitted to nursing home. All this I had to tell him because he had come from somewhere else, so that he knows. I didn't know why he has come. He said, no, that is not. We just came to take your advice. I said, look, this is something you have to do yourself. There's nobody can give any advice in this matter because it's something very personal and very, something very sacred and important. He said, no, I want to go this way. His son also, he said, no, we have all thought about it. So about, now it's almost 4 months since I saw him, and 2 days back I saw him taking a stroll on the beach road. So he tells me, doctor, I just thought I will tell you. I mean, he speaks in Hindi, so I am translating in English. He said, I feel absolutely fine. I take 4 times walk every day. I said, I take twice and I feel not up to the mark. It's good if you take 4 times. He's nearing 70. So it's not that he is young that way. He said, I have now decided that I will live in Pondicherry. Now, at that point of time, it didn't strike me. But as I went ahead, it struck me, what did he say? People normally with stage 4 cancer will say that I would die in Pondicherry. Here is a man says, I have decided to live in Pondicherry. Is it casual? I mean, he said, I want to live in Pondicherry. I just asked him that time that what about your children? No, they have also decided to come here. So I was speechless, and I have seen such instances. I mean, 4 immediately come to my mind. So we really don't know, but obviously it's not something which one can either recommend or make a rule, because the rule of nature is still that most human beings believe that no, it is impossible. Even this is going to take time for human mind to affranchise itself from the laden grip of matter. Yes. On one side, there's all the opinions of the scientific world running into. It's good that they are returning the awards, by the way, in their side. What the real scientific discoveries, which would be path breaking, are not where we perpetuate the laws, but where we find something which goes beyond the law. This is science, and I find it really a super science. That how the mind can change things. There are people who have done work in that field, but they go unrecognized. Rupert Sheldrake, he has done a lot of work, genuine work.
Yes, Russians did a lot of
Russians, work. And yet, he would be sidelined. Mainstream scientists would not believe in it. No. And that's how they continue to hold a grip upon the mind of the race. This is another kind of tyranny and another kind of hypnosis which we suffer from. So
but it's cracking.
It's cracking. It's beginning to crack. Few more lines.
Yeah.
It makes the body sleep. A pusa arm holds till the breath, the beatings of the heart. While the unseen is found, the impossible done, communicates without means the unspoken thought. These tremendous things that the mind can do. Actually, of course, Sri Aurobindo speaks about it, and there are yogis who have achieved it, that even with the heartbeat stopped and breath stopped, you can continue to live. And Sri Aurobindo confirms it, that yes, it's possible.
And it happened with Ashwapati.
Yeah, with Ashwapati. Sri Aurobindo and the mother obviously experienced it. But just forget about all that and just think about everyday life. People don't know that what happens to us when we sleep. If they knew, they would be frightened out of their wits. When I read it in my medical school, I said, oh my God, this is what happens? Your whole body goes into a state of disarray, as if everything is being undone, thoroughly given a scrubbing. Of course, mother speaks of, toxins being burnt and then you are set into a new gear of machinery. I mean, it's amazing how it is done. All our ordered rhythm of breathing and eyeballs and heartbeat, everything for a moment, as if, it has to be redone, reset, tuned. So it's amazing. Acts. It moves events by its bare, silent will. Acts at a distance without hands or feet. Acts at a distance without hands or feet. The mind is the sixth sense. It can know from afar and act from afar. So when people say that Sri Aurobindo escaped, it is one of the many giant ignorances. Sri Aurobindo did not need any more hands and feet to act. That's what is for us mortals. He could act at a distance. Living in one room, he could help somebody on the battlefield in Germany, or reveal himself to Medhananda in the Amazon forest. All this he could do.
And he's acting in us now.
Acting in us now. In fact, the mother says that his action has become even more powerful, because now it's no more limited by anything.